pictures monumental paintings and virtual sculptures with miners in the main roles. A Ukrainian artist who created the entire fairy tale world for his creative statements. What is trans-monumental art? And why do these works succeed on the world art market? UATV correspondents were present at the preparation and opening of the unique exhibition of a contemporary Ukrainian artist with a Donbas soul. Donetsk Coal Basin, abbreviated Donbas, is the largest industrial region of Ukraine, located on the territory of several regions. Over the last 5 years, the world community talks about this basin only in the context of the temporary occupation of the Donbas by separatists, who are supported by the Russian Federation. Today, the Russian-led militants control only part of the Donbas, but under their control, there are the largest cities, Donetsk and Luhansk, as well as the majority of the coal mines. After the annexation of Crimea, the Russian authorities chose these boundary regions for a hybrid invasion of Ukraine, not on their own behalf, but allegedly on the behalf of the people of the Donbas, who turned against Kiev authorities. These supposedly are people who always felt that they were Russians and wanted to return to the new Soviet Union. These myths became the basis that made part of the local population to see the invasion as a good thing. If we look back into history, at the end of the 18th century, after the discovery of coal deposits, people of 30 ethnic groups lived in the Donbas. 60% of them were ethnic Ukrainians and only 20% were Russians. Later, this ratio changed, but not in favor of the Russians. As for the pro-Soviet sentiments, everything was rather on the contrary. In the spring of 1991, Donetsk miners went on strike with demands to dismiss the president of the USSR, Mikhail Gorbachev, and constitutionally approve the previously adopted Declaration of State Sovereignty of Ukraine. Nowadays, historians believe that the events in the Donbas were one of the triggers of the final collapse of the Soviet Union. Of course, there are no simple answers in the history of a multifaceted region, and one of the ways to comprehend the spirit and culture of the local inhabitants is art, which is special in the case of a contemporary Ukrainian painter from the Donetsk region. My name is Roman Minin. I'm a muralist, and I like the monumental genre and monumental art. Art for me is a game. I welcome all those for whom art is also a game. It is a very interesting and challenging game. Roman prefers to play with miners. People wearing helmets with flashlights, with hammers in their hands, and with wishful faces became heroes of the majority of his work. Just as miners develop coal deposits, so Roman Minin found in their faces a golden vein for creative rethinking. As such, his newest exhibition is called The Gold of the Nation. The topic of miners is always in my soul and my mind. Over the course of time, the topic has transformed and all the meanings have changed. And now it is interesting for me what it was in the context of the entire world. What was the history of coal mining and a miner as mode of life and a symbol. As a muralist, I'm very interested in symbols. Coming up next in the program, how did a talented boy from a mining town find his way to art? What drawing tools, materials, and techniques are used by the artist for his great creative play? Why does he call his style trans-monumental art? And what is the real gold of the nation? So, an intriguing journey into the miner's fairy tale of Roman Minin begins right now. In the early morning of August 31st, 1935, a throng of people greets two exhausted miners who went up to the surface of the mine with ovations and flowers. One of them is Alexei Stakhanov, who mined 102 tons of coal in a 6-hour shift at the rate of 7 tons. By his example, he inspired people to the Stakhanov movement. His photo was published on the cover of the US publication Time magazine, and all of this was a blatant fabrication. The Soviet leaders needed ordinary labor heroes in order to pass off the cruel and inhuman industrialization of the 1930s as an initiative by the lower strata of society. It was not difficult to create the myth. Productivity indices of all the workers of the shift were simply attributed to Stakhanov, and the shots of the so-called chronicle were staged. But many generations of miners grew up on the myths about Stakhanov. In the Donetsk region, there had been no discussion around the question what profession to choose in the future, because 90% of the local population became miners. The parents of almost every child were miners. It was a genuine mining town. There was neither the time nor the money to leave the town. We did not even have a railway station in those years. There was only one bus station in the town. A lot of towns were built in the Donbas to develop the newly opened mines. There were no other professions besides coal mining. To become a miner meant a daily routine in their lives with the risk of death and a detriment to their health within 2 or 3 decades. In light of this darkness, Roman saw a totally different and brighter future for himself. In my childhood, I even could not imagine that I would become a miner. That is not because it is shameful, bad, and so on. I could become a miner, but I had a talent. And it was normal, because I have creative parents who, of course, did not want me to work in the mines. So when they saw my talent, they began contributing to its development in every possible way. Later he entered the Kharkiv Art School and then the Art Academy, but all the same he couldn't escape from the topic of mining. The time comes when each student has to choose the topic of the course, work or diploma. One day Viktor Hontarov said to me, "You're from the Donetsk Oblast, so why don't you paint pictures of miners?" And I thought, why not? I tried and it went so well that I created a series of 80 paintings, which I called Miners' Folklore. The painter wrote a short poem to each painting, but soon Roman realized that he had chosen the wrong style. He understood that he had to paint illustrations in a book rather than painting on canvas. The search of various means of expression eventually led him to engage in street art. I like large formats and painting on walls. I remember how one day I went outside to paint on fences and garages. I liked it even more. And later I began to engage in muralism and realized that it was really my calling. So that was when I began thinking like an architect. Since then, Roman has created many monumental works and art objects in Ukraine and abroad. His original trans-monumental art exists on the interface and crossroads of various mythologies, visual arts, and even realities. Especially for UATV, he opens the backstage of his exhibition Gold of the Nation and tells our viewers how it is done. Monumental art, it is both Egyptian pyramids with the Sphinx and mural on a wall of an apartment building in a large metropolis. The main principle of this art is to fit into the architectural or natural environment or supplement it. As a rule, a monumental work expresses a clear idea, but what exactly it is depends on the context of the era. The Soviet era created socialist realism, a special artistic method that was invented to convey to the people the struggle for a bright communist future and its achievements. In 2015, the decommunization process started in Ukraine. The country began to get rid of the symbols of totalitarianism, monuments and other monumental works. Quite a lot of ideologically neutral Soviet mosaics, bas-reliefs and panels remained in the towns, and these symbols were exactly what Roman Minin exploited in order to create his fairy tale miner's world. I like the pathos of the communist style, such as epic pathos, a purely decorative style, the message and the power of expressiveness of this genre. This is sort of a combination of folk art and not only Ukrainian one. Of course, this is the decorative art of all nations. This is the art of the Mayan civilization and Byzantine art. I really like the Byzantine style. Roman himself describes the world of his monumental works as a miner's fairy tale, which is filled with symbols. In order that they are perceived correctly, a painter should remove all the unnecessary elements and focus on capturing the attention of the audience and focus on the main ideas and issues. For example, how can people go down into a mine every day knowing that they may never return to the surface? There is such a notion as eschatological delight, so the profession of a muralist is very close to this feeling and this mood. These sacrifices must be justified. Why do we need all of this? For the sake of what light do we make fire? Question why is a sacred question, so this is exactly what gives me inspiration in my work. Golden bas-reliefs take a central place in the first part of the exhibition, The Gold of the Nation, exhibited at the Kharkiv Municipal Gallery. It may seem at first glance that they are made of metal, but in fact the painter uses much more affordable, available and flexible material. I cut out fragments of polystyrene foam and stick them together using polystyrene foam glue. In order to make it more solid, I polymerize the upper layer with fire. It clenches by 1/3 and the top layer becomes like plastic, and then you can paint it with any paint. It turns out quite aesthetically pleasing and interesting. These bas-reliefs, as befits monumental art, are long-lasting and can withstand any inclement weather, so perhaps after the exhibition they will be placed along the streets of Kharkiv. They depict various military hardware that consist many strange elements and human figures. Roman assures that his works can be interpreted in a different way, but he gives everyone some food for thought. The main character of this part of the exhibition is a man who is used to make money. The main message of the Gold of the Nation exhibition is the people. Gold of the nation is not oil or gold reserves. First and foremost, this is a symbol of people who are being used. The war in the Donbas and the accompanying split in the worldview of his co-rivals are reflected on Roman's creative work. He created a series of works under the title Us Aliens. You can't fail to notice a huge black and white panel entitled Find Aliens at the latest exhibition. The lead character of this series is Us Aliens. I combined the xenomorph of the famous Alien movie and the miner, and it ended up like a minor alien. There are 33 characters in this painting. All you must do is look closely to find them. Roman says that this monumental panel is a sketch for scaling. Theoretically, all his works could be the decoration of buildings or large halls, but since it is difficult to implement them in this form in organizational and financial terms, the artist chose an intermediate form. Looking at the works, it is easy to understand that it takes Roman a lot of months of hard work to create the large number of layers and details. I cut out the contours and stick them together. After that, I tint the colors and make a bas-relief. I would say that this is a primitive, three-dimensional image. Roman also makes a sophisticated three-dimensional image with detailing, but not in this reality, rather in an augmented one. You can see his work Love from the same series Us Aliens in two places in Kharkiv. This is a two-dimensional image on the wall, but with the help of a special application it assumes a certain volume on the screen of a smartphone. I will create the sculpture Us Aliens in natural size and reality, and at the same time I will create a sticker of the same size, but only in an augmented reality. Then people will be able to compare how the media works. In reality you can touch the object and the form and then see the image in additional reality. There is another project created by Roman Minit as a quest for his audience. These are encrypted inscriptions in almost all pictures with minors. If earlier he wrote poems, then later he invented his special language, which he still uses to this day. I wanted to play this game with my audience. Some of them succeeded to decode these inscriptions. We write letters and messages to each other using this font, and I'm totally convinced that I have fans that can read and decipher the encrypted text of my poems. Over recent years, the number of connoisseurs of Roman Minit's creative work has rapidly grown outside of Ukraine. For example, exhibition curator and art dealer Igor Abramovich presented the works of the Donbas artist at many prestigious international auctions. After we got together at the largest American project for the first time, where he participated in the competition titled Grand Rapids Art Prize, we then realized that we presented our works not only in the context of Ukraine, but also in the global context, because there are mines and miners in all countries of the world. In the US, Igor and Roman presented a multicolored panel under the title The Carpet of Promises. It was intended as a sketch of a stained glass window. To the surprise of the Ukrainians, the organizers of the exhibition soon asked to paint it on the glass and in the most advantageous location. They saw our project and offered us to paint it in the best part of the city. American artists saw us and asked, "How did you manage to do it? To whom did you give the money?" We said that we knew nobody here because we were taking part in the competition for the first time. We said that this work was some kind of gem for the entire world, and so it should be presented all over the world. We have something to show and people want to see it. Why not? The second part of the exhibition, Gold of the Nation, is picturesque. Within 10 days since the opening of the first exhibition, Roman Minit has painted over 30 paintings. The main work will be a picture that is not yet finished. This is a picture quest. This picture will be a map. If someone pores over the map, they can find a real treasure. I want to make a genuine treasure chest. I am almost finished with it. I will stash it somewhere under the ground. I also want to play this game. I want to make a treasure map that will be called the Gold of the Nation, and I am confident I will finish it this year.
Я думаю, в этом году ее закончу.
Roman Minin is already one of the most prominent Ukrainian artists of our time. What other treasures will be created by him in the future, and in what reality should we look for them? One thing is clear, this game of art by Minin will definitely be intriguing.